My name is Kathleen Graham. I'm a Senior Project Manager at the RCSLT, and I'm here to talk to you today about dysphagia, or eating, drinking and swallowing difficulties, EDS. So you're going to graduate in the next few months, and you might be considering looking for roles that work with clients with eating, drinking and swallowing difficulties, whether that's with adults, children, right the way across the spectrum from neonatal care right the way through to end-of-life care. There are three documents that are really key to understand within dysphagia/EDS. So the first document is the pre-registration eating, drinking and swallowing competencies document. Now, this document sets out how from 2026, students will graduate with an achievement of these competencies ready to go into their first role as a newly qualified practitioner. Now, some of you may have started to sign off these competencies, which is great, but the formal recognition of them won't come in until 2026. So what you need to understand is another document, which is the 2014 Dysphagia Competency Framework, which sets out from levels A to D of dysphagia training for speech and language therapists. So the 2014 document is the document in which the level C framework is what you should be aiming for if your role dictates that you're going to be working with people with swallowing difficulties. Now, some people can achieve this framework in-house through in-house supervision, direct teaching, learning through shadowing. Other people might go on a more formal course where they receive a postgraduate level certificate or points towards a master's level qualification in dysphagia or eating, drinking and swallowing. And sometimes it's called a postgraduate dysphagia course. Either of these routes are absolutely fine to take. Both of them will involve a period of supervision and having a dysphagia trained supervisor sign you off as competent and as having achieved all the competencies within level C before you start to increase your independence in working with people with eating, drinking and swallowing difficulties. You might also hear about the EDS competency framework. So the EDS competency framework is specifically designed for non-speech and language therapists and ranges from level 1 to level 6. It was previously called the Intercollegiate Swallowing Framework, and the aim of it is to promote that swallowing dysphagia is everyone's concern, and that anyone who's involved with a person with dysphagia or eating, drinking and swallowing difficulties has an understanding of what is required in their role. So from level 1, which might be a very basic understanding of identifying people with a swallowing difficulty or providing the right levels of diet and fluid for them, right the way through to a more advanced level. And the more advanced levels do have some crossover with the 2014 Dysphagia Competency Framework, but we need to be really clear that the speech and language therapist should be using the 2014 document and the other professionals should be using the EDS Competency Framework. And within the EDS Competency Framework, you could have, for example, colleagues who are nurses, physiotherapists, dietitians, who use that to become more independent in managing people with eating, drinking and swallowing difficulties. Just to add that the 2014 Dysphagia Competency Framework is currently under review. So we have put together a working group and we're looking at all of our dysphagia and EDS guidance, but we also want to update that framework and align it with the professional development framework. There's often been this attitude within speech and language therapy of, are you dysphagia trained or not? But we know that's not the case. We know that our development is a journey. It's a spectrum from that first introduction to what eating, drinking, and swallowing difficulties are, right the way through to our consultant level, our clinical academics who are at the forefront of developing new interventions for people with dysphagia. So the document we're hoping to release late 2024, so the new dysphagia/EDS competency framework, it will fit in with the professional development framework. You will have initial competencies which will be transferable from the pre-registration EDS competencies so that they all fit together, that it's a continuum of learning. For those who've already done their dysphagia competencies at that point, it will be a useful document to plot where you're at on your journey and where you want to get to in terms of your dysphagia knowledge, training and role. And we really think that it's important for us to look at how we can develop within all areas of speech and language therapy, but for this specifically within dysphagia and eating, drinking and swallowing competencies. What we're hoping to do as well within the new framework is to cross-reference with other relevant documents within dysphagia. So for example, that could be video fluoroscopy competencies, it could be FEES competencies, it could be intensive care frameworks or guidelines, it could be competencies for working in neonatal units. So we want to have a really clear document that links to the other frameworks that we have, but is a really clear way of monitoring and setting goals for how you can develop as a therapist. So if you choose to start working within a role where you will see clients with eating, drinking and swallowing difficulties, it may be that you are signed off on the 2014 documentation before the new competencies come out. And that's absolutely fine. There will be many speech and language therapists out there who are already working within dysphagia. And we are not asking anyone to redo their competencies. We're asking them to plot themselves against this framework. And it should really be that continual journey. It will also fit in how the pre-registration EDS competencies, if that person goes on to work in a role with dysphagia, how those are monitored within their NQP role, what final sign-off we have with those, and how they can progress to those next stages. So you will get in the chat the links to the documents that I've mentioned. Alternatively, if you've got any questions that come up around dysphagia training or what you need to do, please contact the RCSLT and we can be in touch and give you support. Also, for those of you who do choose to go on a more formal learning route, I would encourage you to apply for our minor grants to help support funding for that if you're not able to achieve or gain that funding through other means. It's a real opportunity to use the funding that we have for members to support them to develop. So thank you very much for listening to me. If you have any questions, please contact RCSLT. Thank you very much.